Detroit Den 313. We're back, Stephen Will, talking that Detroit Lions football. But before we get going, you know what to do. And please listen, if you watch this podcast, make it make sense to me why you haven't subscribed yet. Because we look at the analytics, guys, and again, there we have thousands of people watching, right? But they're not subscribed. I think it's like 70% when we looked at people that are watching aren't subscribed, but they're returning viewers. So it helps us out tremendously. Please hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss our new content. That is my spiel on that. But Steve, what the heck we talking about today?
We're going to talk about some Detroit Lions that are kind of getting, I'll say, just flying under the radar. Just kind of coasting on along. Nobody's really thinking about them. Some hidden gems, you want to call them? Some names. I want to start with Josh Paschal.
Yeah, for sure, man.
The pride of Kentucky.
Yep.
Nobody's really talking about JP. Everybody's talking about Hutch, Davenport. I've even heard a lot of people talking about Matthew Betts.
Yep.
We've had a little segment on Matthew Betts ourselves. The James Houstons of the world. Nobody's really showing that they loved old JP. Why do you think that is, William?
Production. Yeah, production. I think that's the bottom line. I think production and being banged up. You know, he spent a little bit of time just fighting cancer. No big deal. Just trying to stay alive. Like
for his
life. Guys, man. But yeah, fighting for his life, man, and then kind of settling into NFL football. And then he was hurt for a little bit, and now I feel like he's starting to get his feet under him. And I think that he's going to be another guy that is going to greatly benefit from Coach Terrell Williams. So I'm looking for him to take a step forward. But I agree with you. I haven't seen people talking about him really at all. I haven't seen him being interviewed in Alliance pressers. I haven't seen guys talking about him, and I'm with you. And I know a couple of people came for you when you said, hey, I don't really watch other podcasts, but then I haven't seen stuff in podcasts, and I got to stand with you and kind of defend you on something, because I'm kind of the similar way. Now, every now and then a topic will catch me and I'm like, oh man, I should watch that, but I'm gonna watch that. But for the most part, I don't watch other podcasts either, and it's not because I don't like other Lions stuff. It's because I'm the same way, man. I don't want them affecting my thought processes of
subconsciously.
What you're gonna come on here and talk about. Now, if it is like a crazy subject or something that I feel like is super, super hot, I want to hear about it, I will. But for the most part, I don't either, man. But I do the same thing. I look at the thumbnail and I know what the latest news is, and I'm like, hey, I'm kind of noting that. I don't see any Josh Paschal thumbnails, you know what I mean? And I don't see like snippets in the shorts or anything when we're scrolling through our stuff about Josh Paschal. So he is a guy that is completely floating under the radar, but I think that he's a beast, man. When he came out of Kentucky, I know you and I were talking about that, how athletic he was and how, his game being potentially a guy that could stand up and put his hand in the dirt. Now, we haven't seen him stand up, and he's got a lot beefier than he was at Kentucky. I think, again, that probably flows into dude going from fighting for his life to kind of just settling into his adult body. But do you think that Josh Paschal can make an impact on this Detroit Lions defense?
I've said it a million times. I kind of call that opposite defensive end of Aiden Hutchinson. I call it the bullpen, because we got about 7 or 8 guys that we're looking at to get the job done over there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when a lot of people at the end of the year, you're going to look at individual stats, but if you look at this group of guys, the Paschals, Kaminsky's, Houston's, Matthew Betts, Davenport, whoever else we're throwing on that edge, if you take their collective numbers at the end of the year, if we could get somewhere around 10 to 13 sacks from that group of guys, I think it'll be very productive. But Josh Paschal himself, it's just kind of, in my opinion, I think it's just going to be game plan. What it comes down to is a game plan and matchups and situations. Maybe some guys are banged up, who's available, who's out. I think it's going to come down to that. But I don't see Josh Paschal being like a 8 or 9 sack type player. But I think if he can get 3 or 4 and just contribute, and he can even play some defensive tackle too. So he's probably one of the more versatile defensive linemen, kind of like Levi Onwuzurike. Is he going to be like that second string of defensive tackle, third string of defensive end? Like, he's going to get on the field, but I don't know how. I wouldn't want to call him like a nightmare that a quarterback has to prepare for, but I hope I'm wrong.
I think that he is the 6th man, right, in basketball. And I think he's that role player that you're never going to be writing the story about the reason why we won the Super Bowl is because Josh Paschal was on our team, right? But I think in the locker room, he could be one of those guys that the coaches talk about as a guy that just does everything right, just goes about his business like a professional, um, just quietly, just works hard and plays relentless. And I think that's just what we're gonna see. He'll be a guy that makes plays here and there, defensive tackle, defensive end. A lot of people talk about him like he's just a run stopping DN now. And I will say that's kind of what we've seen him be successful at for the most part. But when he came back from injury a couple years ago, and I think it was against the Dallas Cowboys. He had a heck of a game, and he was getting pressures, and I think he can get back to that, especially again, like I said, with Coach Terrell Williams. And I think that bloodbath is going to be very helpful for him too. There's a bazillion guys. While we got rid of like Charles Harris and the Akora brothers, and those guys, and not both of them. I know the other one retired, Romeo, but Julian's gone. I think he's with the Eagles, and there's room for us to keep these guys on the team. And I think that he's going to be a guy that makes an impact because of that. His athleticism at Kentucky wasn't the same as a guy like John Kaminsky. You know what I mean? He's not just a run stopping in. He has a level of athleticism that I feel like is underrated. And I think he's just going to be a role player that makes plays here and there, and hopefully for the next few years, man, I could see him as a guy, man, that we re-sign for a fair deal. That's nothing crazy. One of those ones that we don't even talk about, and he gets us a couple sacks, a couple TFLs, and and he's just one of those guys that we really need in that locker room and in our culture and in our program. We don't write news stories about him.
So what you're saying is when Josh Paschal makes a game-winning sack in the Super Bowl, you're going to have to come on here and eat all those words.
Steve, listen, he has a game clinching sack in the Super Bowl. You know how I am about jerseys, and we ain't got to get into it, but I will come on here in a Josh Paschal jersey.
You're gonna get a JP tattoo on your left butt cheek.
If he wins us a Super Bowl, I'm not above a JP tattoo, man.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Hey, listen, if he wins us a Super Bowl, I'm gonna send him a message on Instagram, see if he wants to come with me. Hold my hand.
Maybe hold your hand. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe hold your hand. Like maybe he comes up with the logo design or whatever we decide to go with.
I want the Super Bowl bad.
Last year, I think I did a solo episode. It's out there. It was last training camp, and I kind of did my X factors for last year. And Josh Paschal was my defensive X factor. Okay. Not gonna lie, kind of let down. Kind of let down with how he played last year. I guess I'll just say it. Like he wasn't the Josh Paschal I thought he was going to be coming out of Kentucky, but I still think he could be really good. I still think he could be, like you said, that role player that makes a play here or there. I think what we're taking for granted a lot with Josh Paschal is at Kentucky. I believe he was a captain. I think he was a 3-year captain. Mm-hmm. You know how hard that is to do? Go to the SEC, one of the powerhouse conferences in the country, and be a 3-year captain. I could be wrong on that, but I know he was a captain. But still, it's pretty impressive. And when he was drafted in the 2nd round, I was like, man, we got an absolute steal. Like they were really talking this kid up on ESPN, and the flashes have been there. Goes, fights cancer. Obviously, that's way more important than football. Last year, maybe just a little rust. This year, I think it's almost a make or break year for Josh Paschal. He's kind of been like my defensive Jamison Williams. Like I need to see something this year if I'm going to keep standing on this island and defending you. This has to be a year where you show me a little something.
I think you will, and I think he's gonna be another person that's a contributor of DJ Reader and Lee McDill, and hopefully Broderick Martin. Those guys absorbing more blockers, man. Those guys just demanding more attention. I think we're going to get opportunities to get one-on-one matchups, and we're going to get opportunities with blown blocking, in front of them, man. I mean, you might come clean on a couple of plays because they're so worried about our interior guys, man, and Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side. So I just hope that I'm not going to say transforms his body because that's just, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. I do feel like he's a lot bigger than he played in college, but I hope that he can show off his athleticism because that's not something that I've really seen from him in the NFL yet. I've seen him be powerful. I've seen him set just a mean edge in the run game, but I haven't seen him really just look super athletic out there. And when we drafted him out of Kentucky and I watched that film, he jumped off the screen as an athlete.
You think this is the year, make or break year for him?
I don't think it's a make or break year, but I think we will see a lot of improvement from him. But I think I'm a big 2-year guy. I think that you get a new coach and he teaches you some skills and some techniques, and you got to get that year under your belt with him, just learning those techniques. Like, so you're going to get better, but I think year 2 under Coach Williams is going to be the year where these guys roll into the training camp knowing the techniques and things that he's looking for. They have situations that they can relate what they've been taught to under a body of work. They can go back and watch film, and then they can implement it. So I think that, and they can train for the things that he's going to ask them to do. So I think we'll see some improvement this year. I think the dramatic improvements will be the year after, but also a lot of times you see those things start to click towards the end of a season. So we might see kind of like an Aiden Hutchinson on the back half of this season. The things that Coach Terrell Williams is teaching, it might start clicking on the back half, and when we go after that whole enchilada.
I'm going to tell you something, William.
Talk to me.
I'm glad you mentioned Coach Terrell Williams, because last year in Tennessee, or when Terrell Williams was in Tennessee, he had a guy by the name of Danico Autry.
Mm-hmm. He's 75 years old, isn't he?
He's 30. He'll be 34. I'm looking at his stats right here. Oh. Danico Autry kind of bounced around the league a little bit. Started with Oakland, stint with Indy, a couple years with Tennessee before he really, really just broke out last year with 11.5 sacks. I think Terrell Williams had a big thing to do with that. Now, Danico Autry was someone I was very high on as a free agent this year. He was kind of in my second tier of guys I'd like to get, a little older. Josh Paschal kind of reminds me of a Danico Autry, and Josh Paschal is a lot younger, and I think the physicality and the abilities are the same. I'm waiting to see Terrell Williams get his hands on him, take that juice and just squeeze everything out of it. I almost wanted to say take that lemon, but that makes Josh Paschal sound bad, like he's a lemon. I don't want to do that. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, though. I want to see him get his hands on him and squeeze all that talent that he can, because I look at Josh Paschal, I look at Danico Autry, who was not an all-star or a Pro Bowler or not an elite pass rusher, but he kind of started to develop under Terrell Williams. So I put Josh Paschal in that category of, let's see what he can do with the new defensive line coach. Aaron Glenn, 3rd year with him. I think this is going to be a big year for JP. I hope it is. I'm just not willing to bet on it yet.
Hey, guys, you heard it here from Steve. He said, so I make it clear, Steve said that Coach Terrell Williams is going to turn Paschal into Danico Autry. He's going to have 15 sacks this year. Yeah. And he's going to turn Broderick Martin into Jeffrey Simmons. So
Jeffrey Simmons, Aaron Donald, easy.
Oh, Aaron, I apologize. No, because no, I wasn't done yet, because there's also, Steve also said, I was going to disclose this later, but he also said Mekhi Wingo is going to be Aaron Donald. So
absolutely,
those three. So those are the 3 things that Steve is guaranteeing. If it doesn't work out, I will send you his address.
We got six Pro Bowlers on this defensive line. 5 of them will be in the Hall of Fame. 4 of them are going to win Super Bowls with the Detroit Lions. Yeah, listen, William. People twist our words on YouTube enough. Right? Don't give them any. Don't give them any more.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We just hopped on here. Wanted to talk about some defensive players. We don't really see a lot of being talked about. Like we said, we don't watch a lot of podcasts. We don't want anything subconsciously being put in our heads. But we're on YouTube. Yeah. We can scroll. We can see pictures. I'm not going to put up a picture of Jared Goff and then talk about Josh Paschal. It doesn't make sense, but we can kind of see what's going on. So leave some comments down below. Let us know how you feel. Stick around, subscribe. We'll be back later with another show.
Peace.